Ramadan is approaching soon, and it is impossible to ignore how central this month is in Islamic life. So we decided to dedicate this video to it. Ramadan is described as the most sacred month in Islam. A month of mercy, forgiveness, multiplied rewards, chained devils, descending angels, and one night better than 1,000 months. Laylat al-Qadr. For many Muslims, these ideas are simply part of everyday faith. They are heard in khutbahs, taught since childhood, rarely examined carefully. But when we slow down and analyze the structure of these claims, important questions begin to appear. Let us begin with the purpose of fasting. In Surah al-Baqarah, the cow, Allah says fasting is prescribed so that believers may attain taqwa, God consciousness and self-restraint. Classical scholars like al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir explain that fasting weakens desire and trains the soul. In Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet is reported to have said that fasting is a shield, and that the fasting person should avoid arguments and bad speech. So the ideal is clear. Fasting should build character. It should make people calmer, more patient, more aware of Allah. But fasting as a path to piety did not begin with Islam. Jewish communities fasted on Yom Kippur. Early Christians practiced Lent. Even in pre-Islamic Arabia, ritual fasting and abstinence were known. Across religions, restraint was linked to spiritual elevation. Islam enters a world where fasting is already understood as a religious discipline. Modern science has also studied fasting. Research into time-restricted eating and caloric restriction explores metabolic effects. The 2016 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to Yoshinori Ohsumi for discoveries related to autophagy, a cellular process often mentioned in discussions about fasting. But here is the important distinction. Clinical intermittent fasting does not require dehydration. It is controlled and adapted to the individual. Ramadan fasting forbids water, shifts sleep patterns, and its duration depends entirely on geography. It is not the same protocol studied in laboratories. Now consider universality. In Surah al-Baqarah, the cow, fasting is defined from dawn until nightfall. The Qur'an presents itself as guidance for all humanity. Yet the length of fasting depends entirely on daylight hours. Near the equator, days are stable. In northern countries like Canada or Norway, fasting can reach 18 or 20 hours. Above the Arctic Circle, during parts of summer, the sun may not set for weeks. On the contrary, during parts of winter, however, the sun may barely rise, or not rise at all, making the traditional dawn-to-sunset fasting framework astronomically ambiguous. Modern scholars have had to issue rulings allowing Muslims in such regions to follow Mecca time or moderate latitudes. These are later adjustments to handle extreme conditions. If revelation is universal and fully aware of global differences, why were regional distinctions not clearly addressed in the original text? Here is a direct analogy. Imagine a global company imposing one uniform safety rule on all its factories, whether they are in mild climates or extreme deserts. When workers begin collapsing, management later adds exceptions. That is not perfect design from the start. That is correction after real-world problems appear. If hardship depends heavily on latitude, climate, and job type, then the burden is not evenly distributed. Now consider age. Fasting becomes obligatory at puberty, often around 11 to 13 years old. Islam defines this as the beginning of moral accountability. But adolescence is a period of physical growth and brain development. Medical literature emphasizes stable nutrition, hydration, and sufficient sleep during these years. Clinical discussions about Ramadan fasting in adolescence often recommend careful monitoring, especially in hot climates or physically demanding environments. Islam allows exemptions for harm, but socially, many young teenagers fast full days regardless of physical strain. The religious threshold is moral maturity. Biological development is gradual and varies from child to child. Now let us examine the claim that devils are chained. In Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, the Prophet is reported to have said that when Ramadan begins, the gates of paradise are opened, the gates of hell are closed, and the devils are chained. Taken at face value, this suggests that a major external source of temptation is restrained. What would that mean in practice? There is no consistent global evidence that Ramadan reduces crime across Muslim-majority countries, except for one study undertaken in 2019 in Pakistan, and there is little to no evidence of aggregate crime reduction in non-Muslim countries. In heavily Muslim societies, small declines in certain crimes during Ramadan can often be explained by social factors. Nightlife decreases, public behavior changes, religious pressure increases, routines shift. That is understandable, but the claim about devils being chained is theological, not merely cultural. If devils are literally restrained, the effect should not depend on whether a country is Muslim majority or not. External satanic influence, if reduced, should produce some consistent behavioral change wherever humans live. Yet we do not observe a clear universal pattern. In either case, the simple expectation that evil will visibly decline because devils are chained does not clearly match observable reality. Now consider the reward multiplier system. In Surah al-Baqarah, the cow, charity is described as being multiplied many times over. Hadith literature speaks about deeds being multiplied tenfold or more. In Surah al-Qadr, Laylat al-Qadr is described as better than 1,000 months. This creates a powerful spiritual incentive system. Traditionally, this is presented as divine mercy. Even someone with limited time can gain immense reward. But large reward multipliers also shape behavior. Many communities observe the same pattern. Some individuals are minimally practicing throughout the year. During Ramadan, especially the last 10 nights, religiosity intensifies sharply. After Ramadan ends, the intensity fades. When one night is described as equal to more than 80 years of worship, it can create a cram session mentality. If one final exam determines nearly the entire grade, students will ignore daily effort and focus only on that exam. The structure itself encourages short bursts rather than steady growth. The intention may be mercy. The behavioral outcome may be a performance cycle rather than sustained transformation. Now Tarawih. Tarawih literally means rests, referring to pauses between prayer units. Historically, congregational Tarawih was organized under Umar ibn al-Khattab. Reports state that he gathered people behind one imam and called it a good bid'ah, a new organized practice. For a Muslim, the word bid'ah is serious. Innovation in religion was strongly warned against in early Islam. Many early disputes revolved around new practices. Some disagreements escalated into major political and theological conflicts. Yet Tarawih, in its structured congregational form, was institutionalized after the Prophet's lifetime. The traditional explanation is revival of communal worship. In practice, Tarawih often becomes a matter of quantity over depth. 20 rak'at counted, a full juz completed each night. Recitation accelerated to ensure the Qur'an is finished within the month without overburdening the congregation. Even the physical experience reflects it. Bowing and prostrating on a heavy iftar meal, managing endurance rather than immersion. Ironically, the word means rest, yet many experience fatigue and discomfort. It is like someone measuring gym success by the number of repetitions instead of proper form. The number increases, but the real benefit may not. Finally, consider sleep and safety. Ramadan changes daily rhythms. Late meals, night prayers, early suhoor. Research in sleep medicine consistently shows reduced total sleep duration and increased daytime sleepiness during Ramadan in many populations. Studies in countries such as the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have reported increases in road traffic accidents during Ramadan, partly linked to fatigue and altered routines. Reduced alertness and slower reaction times are documented effects of sleep deprivation. The stated goal of fasting in Surah al-Baqarah is taqwa, awareness and restraint. But chronic sleep deprivation often leads to irritability and reduced concentration. So we return to the larger question. Ramadan can inspire generosity, reflection, and spiritual focus. Many people genuinely feel transformed during this month. But the system also raises structural questions. Unequal hardship depending on geography. Early age obligation. Claims about devils being chained without clear global behavioral shifts. Reward multipliers that may encourage short bursts instead of steady growth. night prayers that emphasize quantity over quality, sleep disruption linked to fatigue and even increased accident risk. If Ramadan is meant to be a perfectly designed system for all humanity, why does its real-world impact depend so heavily on climate, sleep patterns, culture, and later adjustments by scholars? Is the system perfectly calibrated for universal humanity, or does it reflect the environmental and social realities of its origin, namely the Middle East of the 7th century? If you like the video, hit like and leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Ergo dubito. Think critically.